Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
this is the Craven County Board of Commissioners regular session, special session for Monday. Excuse me, I gotta change papers here. Craven County Board of Commissioners special meeting for Thursday, August the 6th, 2020. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Bucher,
Here.
Commissioner Liner,
Here.
Commissioner McCabe,
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell. Here. Commissioner Sampson,
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Here.
Chairman Mark.
Here. Do we stand for the pledge and the prayer?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, we humbly come before you today, and we thank you for your love and your grace and your peace that is made available to us all. God, we ask for your divine wisdom and guidance here today, for you and you alone know the future and the things that are to come. We ask that you would lead us in the decisions we are part of and that you would give us boldness to honor you. Would you empower every man and woman in this room to use the life you have given them for good? Let us be leaders who follow your example, leaders who love sacrificially, give selflessly, and serve graciously. May we all do our best to impact this incredible county and nation of ours for the better. We ask your blessing on our commissioners, on our county, and on our United States of America. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. The next is approval of the agenda. There is a change on the agenda. Item number 4, Congressman Greg Murphy, office update. Lauren Wetzel will not be here tonight. She will be here at our next Commissioners meeting on the 17th of August.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Next will be the petition of citizens, but before we do that, I want to read something. Comment periods are not intended to compel board members or staff to answer questions in an improper manner without adequate opportunity for preparation or consideration. Comment periods are also not platforms for debate between a speaker, board members of county staff, action on issues raised during a comment period, if any, will be the sole discretion of the board. Each speaker must address the board as a whole and not any individual commissioner, county staff members, or the audience. From the lectern shall begin his or her remarks by giving his or her name and address and the topic about which they intend to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks as measured by a timer operated by the county staff. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers must be courteous in their language and presentation, must abide by the generally accepted standards of decorum. Speakers shall not make the same or repetitive comments, whether during a particular comment period or over the course of multiple comment periods. Speakers shall not attack or insult any person or group of people, and speakers shall not give belligerent or hostile comments during any comment period. Now, first speaker.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Stephen DiPierio from 4208 Raleigh Road, New Bern, to discuss the Gibbs Road River access.
Okay, Mr. DiPiero.
Good evening. My name is Steve DiPiero. I live at 4208 Raleigh Road in the community of Riverview Heights, located in District 7. I am here representing many fellow residents concerning our community's right to retain a Neuse River access at the end of Gibbs Road. Historically, for over 70 years, our community has enjoyed this access for various fishing, kayaking, wading, and most often for just our river view. Many of our residents have personally expressed how important this access has been to them, to their children, and to their grandchildren. And most recently, due to the COVID-19 crisis, many people are walking, jogging, and bicycling down to this river access for exercise and peace of mind. Our river access is somewhat analogous to our community town square. On July 18th, a new owner of a riverfront property of 100 Gibbs Road started erecting an 8-foot-high privacy fence across our river access. If this fence is completed, it will not only block the river, but will also entirely block our river view. Many people have voiced their objection to this person on that day, and he removed the fence section across. But since that time, he has dumped large piles of dirt and debris there. It is my understanding that Mr. Lee Bettis of 100 Gibbs Road will be submitting a proposal to the Board of Commissioners to purchase this river access soon. I therefore appeal to the board asking you not to sell this small community river access into private ownership for the following reasons. One, this access was legally provided by the original developer of our community in 1952, and again in a subsequent development in 1960. This development includes 207 home lots and also includes the river access clearly shown on the development maps filed with the Register of Deeds. According to the Craven County Subdivision Code of Ordinances, Article 7, titled Shoreline Public Access Requirements, Section 702, quote, as a condition of development in all subdivisions adjacent to a shoreline and having 200 or more lots, the developer shall dedicate land at the option of the county for public access at the time and according to the standards of this formula of this section. 3, the people of Riverview Heights community are predominantly hardworking, tax-paying citizens who just want to continue to share a small access to this river. And 4, the fact that several public Neuse River accesses have already been lost in Craven County by Craven County land sales may be perceived as favoritism towards riverfront property owners at the expense of the vast majority of homeowners like me and others who do not own riverfront lots. Our collective property tax base for non-riverfront homeowners far exceeds the tax contributed by a very few riverfront homeowners. This should be taken into consideration when making your decision. We are asking tonight for your support and assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have Mr. Eddie Gaines from Wadsworth Lane to discuss recreation.
This gentleman looks familiar.
All righty. Good afternoon.
Eddie Gaines.
Good seeing you guys. Eddie Gaines, 111 Wadsworth Lane. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of the Recreation Department. I think pursuing a grant to replace the dock at Creekside Park. I think most of you know and are aware how much that park is used, and I think it's a wonderful asset, and especially the dock, and that's, again, an issue. That dock's probably about 20 years old, so it's probably about time to have some fresh boards put out there. But with the number of citizens using it and that for a safety issue, I think it's a great opportunity for the county to pursue a grant of this nature. And so I think I speak for probably a lot of people in Craven County that would certainly support that venture. So thank you, and good seeing everybody.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I know we don't have the right. But prior to this gentleman coming up here, I thought this was pretty much a done deal. But with him speaking, we may have to think this over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hope I didn't wreck it.
Good night, Eddie.
Mr. Chairman, that is all of the citizens that have signed up.
That's all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of July 20th, 20 regular session. In addition, the board is requested to approve the tax releases and refunds shown on the attachment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes. Okay. Next is the Volt Center update, Dr. Raymond Stats. Good evening, Dr. Stats.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you for letting me join you today. And Commissioners, I hope you're having a great evening. Some exciting things to tell you today about what's going on at Craven Community College, and this is a story of success. And I want to give you a little bit of a background. Let's see if my slides are working. They sure are. A little bit of a background on how we got to where we are. Share with you the successes of our first year in operation. And then talk a little bit about Phase 2, as we are colloquially calling it, and to include some discussion about our small business center, the city garage, and then finally, our hopes for a new law enforcement simulation capability for the local community. And then I'll share with you briefly a life cycle cost model for the center, and tell you a little bit about our needs assessment that is ongoing for future work. So this started way back in September of 2015, about 2 months after I arrived at the college, as a vague notion that maybe we might be able to take this derelict electrical facility and turn it into a workforce training center. By the next spring, we were engaged in serious conversations with the city of New Bern, and a few months after that, the first of a series of grants began to arrive, being from the Golden Leaf for about $549,000. By the next spring, I'd begun conversations with you, and we had completed grant approval for the Economic Development Authority grant of $1.3 million, which brought the project into full force and moving forward. That year in June, you formally approved O&M, operations and maintenance funding for the Volt Center, and the Bate Foundation and C1A that month also climbed on board, bringing about $2.3 million worth of grants for the project that ultimately would cost about $2.6 million. That summer, we held a faux groundbreaking ceremony. Of course, the ground was already broken there. We went in the empty building. It would be another year before construction would get underway, and that's just a product of working with the federal government and all of the things that you have to work on, I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed, and so forth. But eventually, in the summer of 2018, we did begin construction, only to get halted by Hurricane Florence briefly, but then got back on the move. And then in May of last year, finally, the college got occupancy of the center, and we began conducting our first classes in June of last year. When I spoke to you in February of 2017, I introduced you to 5 programs that we plan to conduct at the center: electrical, HVAC, construction, plumbing, and small engine repair. One of the things I quipped at the time, for those, I think most of you were here on the commission, all but 1 or 2, I joked that before we got the doors open, we would outgrow the building, and indeed we did. In that first year, we've added welding, carpentry, forklift operations, CFC and EPA certifications, environmental certifications, manufacturing career pathways, mold remediation, serve safe refresher, and intro to home brewing, which if you watch the Inside New Bern podcast this morning, we talked about that course. I also told you that the first year would be somewhat of a ramp-up year, and we expected to see 174 students generating 42.8 full-time equivalents of instruction. I'm very pleased to tell you that in the first year, we in fact had 326 students, 84.19 FTE, and that included shutting down on March 14th for the remainder of the fiscal year. As of this past week, our head count for this year is actually north of 250 students. Since this update, we've had that many more. On the way to a full capacity head count of 447 for the year. And you look at that FTE, and even though we have been operating under COVID since or March, I should say, we are already 2/3 of the way through our annual expectation for full-time equivalents. Literally, we are blowing away expectations for the Volt Center. And here's something I think you can take home with you. As of today, 89 jobs have been generated directly from that training. And what that means is before the student completed their course and left the college, they had a job in hand. And the most recent initiative has been our short manufacturing operator course. It's a 2-day course, and we're partnered with Bosch and Moen, and they are going to stay with us on this 2-day course until they complete their short-term employment needs, which I believe are over 100 employees that they need now, and we're getting them about half a dozen at a time. So a little bit of a timeline as we move into Phase 2. In January of this year, we signed a lease with the City of New Bern for the facility at 209 First Street. That's behind the main building, about 2,400 square foot. That was a $1 lease for 10 years. And this month we'll begin initial operations. What makes this unique for us is it puts our small business center operations on the same site that we're training entry-level trade skills. So many of those folks, plumbing, carpentry, and those, after they gain skills and become master tradesmen, this is where they're going to go to upgrade as entrepreneurs to start their own businesses. And so they'll be right there where they can get that help. We've also integrated with a maker space, so we have a larger square footage, and this is an area where those same entrepreneurs can create mock-ups to test their planned facilities that they will eventually put in their own place, make sure they work before moving them off. And finally, something that has come off of our COVID has been the business counseling. We've received nearly $100,000 in grants from the state to increase our business counseling to help folks get through the current pandemic. That's been important, and now Deborah and her team have additional space to make that happen. In June, just 2 months ago, we signed a lease for 106/114 through 120 Rem Street. And if that address looks funny, you got to go back to a 1903 survey of that land. That city garage sits on about 7 parcels that we now are in possession of. We again have a 10-year lease, and we did something a little different. In this case, the facility needed significant upgrades before it was ready for instruction. So we designed a lease where we would make a single lease payment, in this case of $175,000, pay that up front, and then the city would use that money to upgrade the facility to our specifications, thereafter having a 1-year lease. At a 6,200 square foot facility, our average price of going through state construction would be $300 to $350 per square foot. So $175,000 is one heck of a deal for the college. Phenomenal. In June of this year, construction got underway, and we are expecting that construction to be complete sometime between October and November of this year. And with a little good fortune and no more hurricanes, we hope to start programs in January of 21, and they will be primarily diesel mechanic and heavy equipment operator, which, as you know, with a sheer amount of construction going through Craven County right now, there is a tremendous demand for those tasks. In fact, one of the things that we have added to our truck driver program is we now own a dump truck, and you can imagine what that's going to be used for in the coming years. This brings us to the final major portion of Phase 2, and that's our law enforcement simulator. We expect to sign a lease with the City of New Bern either this month or the following month, depending on the attorneys, to lease 128 Rem Street. That building sits on the northwest corner of the Volt complex. The estimated cost, which I just got yesterday finalized, is about $250,000. And in fact, I now have a draft lease in my hands, which is looking pretty good. And the Bate Foundation has stepped up and awarded the city a $50,000 grant to help with that. And the Craven Community College Foundation, somewhat unprecedented for our foundation, has awarded the college a $50,000 grant. It is very rare for the foundation to do capital construction projects. They felt this was important, and we felt it was important to match what Bate is doing for us. Those of you that know, Bate Foundation has been extraordinarily generous to the college over the last 15 years. Now, the nearest existing facility that's similar is at Nash Community College, a little over 100 miles away. It is a substantially older system. You'll see when I describe our system, this is a 3-screen, 110-degree simulator, whereas ours is going to be a 5-screen, 300-degree simulator, a much, much higher technology. And again, the last lease is drafted, and the construction estimate is complete with a timeline once the lease is signed of about 4 months to do construction. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. There we go. Some of you have already seen this simulator in action, or the Nash version of it. We are looking at the Vertra 300 law enforcement simulator. It is a high-fidelity, state-of-the-art use-of-force simulator. Again, the 5 screens. And the college will be using state equipment money to lease this simulator at a cost of about $50,000 per year. It turned out that that was a much better option than purchasing the simulator, which would have been about $300,000 and expected to only have a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. This is going to work much, much better. The programming is fairly complex. We are able to do a host of scenarios, anywhere from de-escalation methods, critical thinking, decision-making skills, body language reaction. We can train with multiple subjects in the scenario, multiple law enforcement officers in the scenario. And what is unique about simulation of this sort is it utilizes a type of decision tree so that the trainee's real-time reactions, a computer operator can gauge those reactions and set switches to get a proper control. So, for example, an officer that prematurely uses force will get one response from the subject, whereas an officer that successfully uses de-escalation will see a different response. And so a single scenario can be run over and over again for different trainees, getting completely different responses. It also can be used for remedial firearms training. When an officer is having difficulty with a weapon, it is expensive to go to a firing range. We can simulate those weapons and get all of the effect and get them up to speed before returning them to a live range and expending actual ammunition. Again, the timeline is about 4 to 6 months. We expect the actual construction to take about 4 months. Then there will be the setup time for the equipment, plus just that usual administrative work that has to be done. So we're looking at a March-ish time frame, assuming the lease gets signed here in the next 6 weeks or so. Life cycle cost model, you may recall, the commission has been funding the main vault complex, which is about 7,500 square feet, at a cost of about $95,000 per year. A little over half of that funds a full-time security officer, a part-time custodial, and then the remainder is in utilities. We're looking to add 11,600 square feet, so roughly a 140% increase in the square footage. And we hope to hire an additional part-time security officer, upgrade the current custodian to full-time, and then again, the remainder would be utilities. We would be asking for this O&M beginning in the fiscal 22 year, next year's request, next May. For present, we are making no request of the Commission for capital. We think we have that pretty well in hand, again, via our partnership with the City of New Bern. Finally, as we get this phase 2, I anticipate more needs. I think, when I talk with Jeff Wood, there is a plethora of needs for skilled trades in a variety of disciplines. We have already identified a number of them for which we need to add programs, and we're looking for space. Auto body repair, masonry, major appliance repair and refrigeration, OSHA training, public safety programs, solar and wind energy, restaurant operations, heavy equipment simulation, much, much more welding, and advanced carpentry. So even as we get these facilities up and running, there are a couple more buildings on that campus that we hope to eventually acquire, and we'll keep building and expanding as needed. Again, this is all about jobs. We're very pleased that we have 89 jobs so far. That's a little more than 1 per week since we opened. And as these new programs come on board, we expect to have that much more. The law enforcement simulator is going to be a significant increase. Those of you who have been following issues that are taking place across our nation, our mission as a community college is in training. We take a tremendous amount of pride in our basic law enforcement training program and the quality of the officers that we send out to be hired by the various agencies. And we take equal pride in the continuing education that we do with these officers to make sure their skills are as finely honed as possible to do very, very difficult work. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
Well, being that you didn't ask for any money, we're ready to ask you questions.
I'll pass the hat next spring. How's that?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I'd like to say that I'm proud of this program because I realized the county had a first idea to try to organize and receive funds and keep people out of our jails because it would cost us so much money. We went through this process for about already 7 or 8 years. Some of you remember and some of you might not remember. We even partner with the community college to hire a person to see that this program would have foundation. And so if people will work together, it took a long time to get this program. The county waited about 7 years before we could get enough people to come together and begin this program. So I just don't want this type of history to die. because we realized that people need jobs. It's better to give a person a job than put them in jail and we pay for them. I've been talking about this ever since I've been on the board, but it seemed like it fell on some deaf ears, but finally last people beginning to hear. And I'm really proud of the county manager. When he came, he jumped right in and started working with this program. We had some ups and downs, we had some arguments, but we just want to let you know that people working together can do everything.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Liner?
Getting back to your question, he pretty much did ask for funding.
Well, not quite.
Just not yet.
Yeah.
He go to those.
It's
a matter of time.
I want to make sure, because I don't want to be in the same boat that 5 of us was in when the Vote Center started. We didn't know the operational cost until the grants and the contracts were signed. And we were stuck in a hole. Either look like fools or give them the $254,000 or $45,000. So I got a couple questions. I want to make sure.
Sure.
That, you know, that's $167,000 in 2 years. That'll be continuous. It'll be continuous throughout, just like the 245 is already for the existing Vote Center. And then I don't understand, where do you come up with the extra $150,000 for the law enforcement simulator?
Let me take those one step at a time. You referred to 245. What number are we referring to?
Commissioner Liner, I think, I want to correct you.
Go ahead.
I think you're mixing the STEM Center, because we took the Vault 1 and the STEM Center at the same time, Dr. Stats.
Correct.
If you remember, there was a larger cost with the STEM Center because it was a new,
STEM was 124.
correct. So, Commissioner Liner, I think you looked at those in parallel because they were happening at the same time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Dr. Stats?
Correct.
Okay, but it's still $200-some-odd thousand for STEM and Vote.
Between Vault 1 and the STEM,
Yes.
I
Yes.
believe that's correct.
Yeah, it'd be
And
two.
now another 167,000.
No, 72.
72.
72.
That's for phase 2.
That's for phase 2. Phase 1 is already complete. You're already funding that.
You're funding the 95 now.
That's been funded since fiscal 18.
Okay,
That was the 95 plus the money that Dr. Stats is talking about for the STEM Center got you the number you're coming to.
Correct. One way to look at that is we up till now, have increased the college's footprint by about 8% with about a 5% increase in funding.
So the 95 is part of the original Vote.
You're already funding.
Correct, sir.
Already funded. So
Correct, sir.
72,000 on that.
Yes.
I get back to the next question. Where's the other 150,000 coming from for the enforcement simulator?
The expectation is the city of New Bern will be passing an ordinance to release those funds.
If I may leap in here, Mr. Chair, the city of New Bern has verbally committed and has informal votes to fund it. They originally said they would fund 250, then VATE came in with 50, and the College Foundation came in with 50. The city is extraordinarily committed to this program.
Yes. And the last time I spoke with an alderman, what they were waiting on was the draft lease, which arrived yesterday, and the estimate from Matt Montaigne at the city for the actual construction costs, which came in exactly where he had estimated. So I expect either the next meeting or the meeting after. We're waiting for the lawyers to tie up the knots, but the draft is now in hand. We're in good shape.
And no equipment cost of any kind for any of these buildings?
There will be a ton of equipment costs, but those will all be borne by the college and state equipment funding. We have those funds in hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Booker?
Two things. The first year operations, you had electrical, HVAC, construction, plumbing, and small engine.
Correct. That was the original
Those
plan.
five Still all being
All are operating, yes.
Operating.
And in fact, multiple phases, for example, electrical, I believe our original plan was for phase 1 and 2 in the first year, where we've taught all 4 in
okay.
the first year.
Some of us elderly people in the room remember in high school, we learned certain skills beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic. I had shop class.
I did too.
I had, I was in a rural school. We did repairs of farm equipment, rebuilt a tractor, those kinds of hands-on things. And the majority of my class did not go to college. I was one of only a handful of this small school who went on to college. Today, our high schools, basically, over the years, our high schools got to the point where every kid had to go to college. That was the mindset. Every kid can't go to college. Number one, every kid shouldn't go to college. So my question is, long intro, this is college, and this is great. Are we melding it all with the high schools to bring high school kids in to learn some of these skills, so when they get out of high school, they may already be ready to go to a construction job, et cetera, et cetera? What are we doing in that area?
There is, and I don't want to get into more than I know about with Dr. Doyle could speak with some better expertise than I could about the actual program in the high schools. But you're right. We traditionally send about 60% of students to college, and that is a tough culture to fight. One of the ways we at Craven are fighting that is, yeah, we can still send 60% to college, but some of those college students are doing what used to be considered trades.
Yeah.
Most of our initial programs with the high schools have all been college prep. But I just signed an MOA this week, for 4 new programs that are trade-oriented. So we're gradually picking that up. But part of that is convincing parents and getting students in camps in 6th and 7th and 8th grade and convincing them that trades are the way to go. I'm a strong believer in capitalism. One of the best ways is you show them the money. We have an advertising campaign that's been going on for several years featuring students from our automotive department that are now earning $100,000. The 2-day course, for example, for the advanced manufacturing, where Bowen and Bosch, you spend 16 hours of training. You're walking out with a $15 to $17 an hour job. That's good money, and you can do it at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And you spend 2 days in college. The word's getting out. It
Well,
is a
I guess my
slow
question was-
generational process.
Is there discussion between
Yes,
Dr. Doyle and yourself?
yes.
How do we make this one program, not 2 programs?
Well, we're operating under some different guidances on how we function, and so that slows that process. So, we integrate, and I'll use, because the trade process is not as well developed, but I'll use the CCP process. So we have agreements with the students and the schools where the students can take 1 or 2 college courses while they're taking their high school courses. And we have integrated our instructors into the high school. We actually have instructors visiting the high school teaching. Conversely, some of the students are coming to the college. So we're trying to implement that model on the trade side of the house, but it is much more difficult to bring our instructors to the high school for the trades because of the equipment. I can't bring my welding, well, I won't say we can't, we have welding equipment at West Craven High School, for example. But to get to all 3 high schools, I'd have to do that 3 times. So there's much more of a need to transport students, which is a tougher proposition. So that has gone slower. But as I presented during our annual update that I give you, each year we are growing our participation with the high school anywhere between 8 and 10%. And we are just now in the last year or 2 starting to see the trades pick up. Welding is one of the very first ones. We're also starting to work on our aviation skills. But it is a slow process, and I think it'll be another 5 or 6 years before we are at, with the trades, where we already are on college prep, but it is happening. Facilities like the Volt Center, which are very well located, I mean, think about where that is relative to New Bern High School and even West Craven. It's going to be an ideal location when you want to put all that heavy equipment into one location. And the more programs that we can get in that single location, then instead of bringing a bus load of kids to 5 different locations to try to get a set of skills, I can bring that same bus load of skills, and 5 of them can take welding, 5 of them can take carpentry, and we can begin to make better deals with the high schools to get those students into us.
Well, thank you for that.
It's happening, slower than you want, though, I admit.
I just encourage, we in many organizations, we have what are known as, I don't know whether silos. Where we got
Stovepipes,
this group
silos.
there, inside there, and this group's inside here. We got to make sure that the high schools and college, community college,
We were 5 years ago about 100, don't quote me on the number, I'm estimating about 170 students participating in our college prep. That number is well over 800 now, overall. So we are seeing tremendous growth. And Dr. Doyle and I are in great agreement. Not only does it help those kids so they're not bored in a classroom, and if you're ready to move on to a college-level course, whether it's trades or prep, sitting in a is counterproductive. But it also, when I send one of my instructors to Dr. Doyle to teach, that's one less instructor that she has to use to teach those same kids. And so, and it works for both of us because the kids coming to us one way or the other. It's better to do it while they're all together. So it is a win-win proposition.
Mr. Chairman.
Of course, if they're at home, they aren't getting any,
It's a challenge, but I'll tell you we're doing it, and I'll give you an example. With the Career and College Promise, the high schools are home all 5 days of the week. We've worked out an agreement with Craven County Schools that the college courses that they're taking this fall will be hybrid. They will spend 1 day on our campus and 1 day at home. Because there's a recognition that with the college courses, there has to be some face-to-face time when you're dealing with 16 to 18-year-olds. Their deal. But part of the way we're able to work that deal is college education is voluntary, not compulsory. Any student that doesn't wish to take face-to-face instruction can take online or not at all, and there's no state law that says they have to do it, unlike secondary education, which is compulsory.
Commissioner Sampson.
Yes,
Commissioner Mitchell raised their hand first, okay?
Yes, Dr. Stantz, I've got two questions because I've seen enough of these models that I've lost track of what I think I remember. Question number one is this the Virtua simulator that you can upload video pictures of our actual facilities in Craven
Correct.
County, like J.T. Barber or the high school, so that our
Correct.
law enforcement officers can practice what to do with a school shooting or an incident in a virtual reality of the actual place?
That is correct. The initial scenarios we'll run as a startup will be those canned scenarios, but we do what's called green screen, where you will do a blank backdrop, and we will go around the city and the county and film different areas. And one of the scenarios I got to witness was at Nash Community College, where the scenario was inside a college building. And it very, very realistic, particularly, and this is going to be even more so because it's going to be almost a complete surround. So realism of a scenario, you can be facing this way. Realism of a scenario, you can be facing this way, and there will be action behind you. Very, very realistic scenarios. That also allows you to actually work in teams. So we will, over the course of the next couple of years, develop a set of robust scenarios that are specific into New Bern High School, film in high school, film in there, and then run a scenario that takes place in New Bern High School.
And my second question, are you going to have enough FTE hours with this simulator so that excess capacity can be offered to law enforcement agencies in surrounding counties?
We have done a pretty robust analysis on capacity. Our first two priorities, based on the discussions we have had, will be for the City of New Bern and the Craven County Sheriff. I estimate that they will use somewhere between a quarter that will be available to us. The BAIT grant, in fact, specifies that we serve all law enforcement agencies in Craven, Pamlico, and Jones County. I think we will still have excess capacity, because those are obviously smaller counties, to be able to offer a variety of education. And there is an interest in law enforcement, that even though that's not part of the mandatory enforcement team, that even though that's not part of the mandatory curriculum, they would like that enhancement to their curriculum to provide some realistic training that can be used that they would have to wait until they were actually on the force to get.
That's all, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Sampson.
Mr. Chairman, I can understand what Commissioner Butch is saying, and I think it's a good idea. I talked to the superintendent down through the years concerning trades in high school, and I came up through the trades in high school. And I went to Pamlico Technical Institute for diesel. But these trades help a lot of young people coming out of school and just keep their minds on something positive. The book learning is all right, but you got to have some experience in how to use it. And that's what this type of trade will teach you, hands-on, that you can have a trade that you can go out. If you can't go to college, you can go get a job just about anywhere. And this is something down through the years, since I've been on the board, I have talked to the superintendent of school, I talked to the one that's left. I talked to the one that was here trying to get these trades, some of these trades in high school. Kids need it in high school because a lot of kids not able to go further to a community college or to some direct position. But if you got a trade, you can get a job when you get out of high school. And this is what I'm interested in. Before they go to jail, I want to be able to get a job. And if we can figure out some type of way, and it's not hard because it's been done before, figure out some kind of way that we can give some trades to some of these kids. Some kids is good with the head and some is good with the hand. So we need to use both kinds. So we don't want to keep taking care of prisoners. And if we come up with a plan like that, because that's waiting on 5 or 6 more years, we no telling how many we have in jail by that time. But if we start now, making the foundation that we can grow these children up through the high school, or even some of them so smart they can come right out of junior high and go right into trade. So this is something we need to think hard about. It worked before, and I know it'll work again.
Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the presentation you made. I just want to go in a little different direction if you can. A question that I ask our school system and also would like to ask you, 2 things. Number one, what are you doing as far as face-to-face instruction? What is the college implementing for this upcoming school year?
Sure, we are actually conducting all forms of instruction, face-to-face, hybrid, and online. Most of our transfer courses are in that online format, so think English, math, social sciences. The Volt Center is operating at full capacity, and that's all face-to-face. It has to be. You cannot train carpenters, plumbers, welders unless you have that face-to-face. They're doing some of the classroom instruction online, but it's a very small part. And again, if you think of the types of students that you're bringing into trades, heavy computer-oriented training is a little bit alien. So we're mostly face-to-face in those categories. Now, the college is implementing a whole host of safety protocols. The rule is 6 feet or mask. We are requiring all students and visitors, employees to arrive on campus with a mask in hand. They don't necessarily have to have it on until they are at risk of being within 6 feet. Instructors have the latitude based on the nature of their classes to either require masks or not. Again, the instructors are required to maintain 6 foot. So what you'll see is in a smaller classroom, such as English, you might see everyone with a mask. In a larger machining shop over in the advanced manufacturing facility, they may come in with a mask. The instructor will get them on the machines. The mask will come off. The safety gear will go on, and they will work. We are seeing, and I didn't bring the numbers with me. I should have anticipated. We started last spring. Let me see if I get these numbers right. At about 41% online, 6 or 7% hybrid, and the rest was face-to-face. Where we're sitting right now is about 45 or 46% online, 18% hybrid, that number I remember. And we're down hovering around 40% seated. And where you're seeing the bulk of the seated is in health programs, nursing, for example. All of those clinicals are face-to-face. You're seeing it in the career programs. You're seeing it in the trades. That's where you're heavy. Go over to our liberal arts and university transfer. You're seeing primarily online students working with that, with the exception of high school, which are going to be largely hybrid, because again, that is, you mentioned working with the high school. The high schools have told us, please, we don't like the success rate for online college students among ours. Please give them some face-to-face time. And up until June, we were planning to bring them 100%, but of course the terrain has changed, so we have pivoted, and we're working with the schools to make that happen.
I commend you and thank you for your vision and giving a choice to everybody. I commend you and your board for doing that. And the next question I have, I heard you state in your comments that y'all had received $100,000 to go towards your business counseling as a result of COVID.
Yeah, that's an approximation. That was money that came through the CARES Act, and then went through the state legislature and then the State Board of Community Colleges.
Have you received any other funds?
Oh, yes.
Are there other funds available?
We have been, folks have been very generous. The challenge has been, They all have very large strings hung to them. The college received $754,000 in May, all of that for student aid, and we have awarded, I think the number I heard this morning was $375,000 of that. We have a year to disburse that. Very strict requirements. They had to be enrolled in a degree or diploma program. They had to be enrolled in at least one seated course that was disrupted and turned into online, and they had to be enrolled during the spring semester. After that, we had a lot of latitude, and we've been awarding about an average of $750 per student that's been eligible. The phase 2 of that grant is another $754,000, which is called institutional money, and it can be used for a wider variety of things, but can also be used for student fund. But the big limitation for that is we may not spend more money from the institutional pot than we spent on the student pot. So we just this week were awarded the 754. As it stands, we could only spend 375 of it. Now we are focusing there on sanitation, our online courses, and increasing our robustness of that. One of the systems we're looking to purchase, in fact, it's on order like everybody else in the United States, is a swivel system, is called, which will allow us to do synchronous in-person and online instruction. So just think, if I'm sitting in here as an instructor, I have a mic, I've got you here in my classroom, but I've also got somebody in a remote classroom watching me as well. The precedent is set for the college in our partnership with NC State. That's exactly what we do. We have our students at the Havelock campus, and they're watching an instructor teaching from Raleigh. That technology was pretty state-of-the-art just a couple years ago, so we're working with that. The cost of cleaning is enormous. We are bringing on extra contractors. The cost to our facilities folks has been enormous, and those costs just keep mounting. The cost of, for example, wireless infrastructure, we could spend an infinite amount of money. We have chosen not to, but we could improve our wireless instruction almost without limit if the money was there. So we're piecing that together. That side of the grant just became available last week, and so I've got a task force at the college. We're using the old green light, yellow light, red light approach, and they are prioritizing all of those expenses, and we're going to start plucking them off. We'll get ourselves up to that 375 mark, and then we'll have to stay parallel. We received a grant from the state to do law enforcement training that was supposed to take place Monday and Tuesday this week. It's now going to take place at the end of the week. And we are one of 4 community colleges out of the 58 that are conducting train-the-trainer sessions for law enforcement officials. That kind of dovetails with what we're doing with the simulator as well. So there's a fair amount of money that has come in. Lots of strings. We're doing our very best to spend it wisely, but also put it to good use as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Stats. Thank you, Mr.
One last question.
Sure.
All your instructors are on hand and happy to teach the 18% that are face-to-face?
Most are, yes. We have a couple that we're working ADA. When we have an instructor that isn't able to teach and it doesn't qualify for Family Medical Leave Act, then we're doing what we call ADA accommodations. We lost a nurse that had medical issues at home that just simply made it impossible.
Right.
But those numbers are small, very small. When you consider that we have 250 employees full-time at the college and then another 200 to 300 adjuncts, we're manned up sufficiently to do our mission.
Congratulations on doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Department matters, the sheriff on cell phone analyzer budget amendment.
Evening, folks. See you all tonight. You have before you tonight a budget amendment request, and we're asking to move some funds from the revenue side over to the expenditure side so that we can move forward with acquiring a Cellbrite cell phone analyzer system and get training for one of our personnel to be able to operate that system.
Okay, do I have a motion? So move. Second? Second. Any discussion? Commissioner Liner.
Captain Lee, sir. Got a couple of questions for you as a sheriff. If you recall, back about 13, 14 months ago when Sarah came in here, the selling point for that program was the cell phone and the mail services they provided. That's what sold that program, because a lot of us on that board didn't want the iPads to be in there to begin with, and those are two items that sold it. So I got a couple of questions in regards to that. In the last 13 months, how many times have you used Securus by sending them off telephones?
Yeah,
I could get that. I don't have that number.
yeah, I don't.
We have used it for lengthy investigations, but not investigations that are short in nature when we have a suspect in the interrogation room. And I don't want to get into the specifics too much of our techniques, but I don't have that exact number with me.
Well, then that leads into the next question. You have the New Bern Police Department has that capability. SBI has that capability. And a couple others have that capability around here.
Yes.
How many times in the last 13 months have you used them?
On a regular basis, but that requires our investigation. I mean, now I can't give you an exact number on that, sir, but I can tell you that when our investigators have to go to New Bern PD, it's first come, first serve. So if New Bern PD is using their equipment, we get in line and hope that we can use theirs. Same thing with going to the SBI or any of the other agencies that already have this equipment. It requires time, resources, which cost us money, and time and investigations for victims of the county to have to travel to other counties to be able to use those resources, and may not be able to use them when we get there right away. There's no guarantee. So if we have this system in our sheriff's office, that makes us self-sufficient, and so it can greatly increase the amount of time that we have to put into an investigation, and it saves our resources.
But how many times has it cost you,
Oh, Lord, to get an exact dollar figure on what it costs to...
It costs that way, as far as the time it takes to get it back, the time you have to wait for the process. Most of this is geared towards a drug deal, probably, homicide, and...
Missing persons, missing children, that sort of thing.
What I'm getting at, here's what I'm getting at. Like I say, when we got Sierras...
You mean Securus?
Securus.
Okay, yeah.
This is the main thing that sold us on getting that program.
Well, the difference between this and Securus is, well, on Securus, we have to actually package up a cell phone.
I understand. I read the contract.
We have to mail it off, and that's completely fine for a lengthy investigation, such as a financial fraud investigation or something that requires a significant amount of time to work on, or if the cell phone has to be taken apart to remove the components on the inside to analyze those. That is what Securus can do. Cellbrite is an instant feedback. So if we have a suspect that we're interviewing at the time, we can actually look at their cell phone and extract information off of their cell phone to give us real-time information and data that we can use during the course of investigations, particularly during interviews. That is extremely critical in some very sensitive investigations that we carry on a regular basis. And so that's why we need this. And by the way, this does not cost taxpayers any amount of money whatsoever.
We're going to argue about that. Okay? We're going to argue about that. I like to write up. It's professional. It really is. You did a great job. I love what you said in there. But no cost to the taxpayers is erroneous. Just because it's federal forfeiture money still comes to you, to the county. Now, that money could have been used any place within your department.
Not correct. So, Sheriff, you want to handle this one? Or?
It can't be used anywhere.
There's
certain things it can be used for, but there's a lot of things like overtime, salaries. It can't be used for that. I wish it could, because that would help solve my comp time problems.
For drug money.
For what?
For buy money.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I believe it is used partially yearly for buy money.
But we gave you a large amount. What I'm getting at, it's taxpayers' money. One way or the other, we spent money in your account coming out of the general fund that this could have been used for, some of it. $13,000 is not really a lot of money.
I wouldn't be asking for this technology if we didn't need it.
Well, if this board remembers, at budget time, we took a lot of other departments and put them on hold until November. 2 weeks after we passed the budget that went into effect, we get a budget amendment to change it. 2 weeks. I would like to have those numbers of how many has been sent off. And I'd like to know how many cases, immediate cases, I don't need to know the cases, but the number of cases that had to be reacted on right then and there during your
And
investigation.
we'll see if we can get that for you.
But you have to understand, a lot of this information is not a public record, because if it is an ongoing current investigation, we cannot release any information
I
whatsoever.
don't need what the investigation is. You know, you got
But
two
still, information
investigations.
pertains to an open investigation.
See what I'm getting at? Thank you.
A couple of questions here. To make sure that I understand what you're saying, the difference between Cellbrite and Securus is this provides you real-time information. Could that be used as a matter of citizen safety, such as a kidnapping, a missing person, impending violent encounter between citizens? Could it be used on a real-time basis to stop, forestall, either keep citizens safe or officers safe?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, all of the above. It is crucial technology that my office needs to get real-time information when we have a murder suspect in our interview room, someone that's suspected of child abduction, and we don't have the luxury of being able to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get that information back from Securus after we secure a search warrant, package it up, and send it off. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Is there any other discussion? And no other discussion, we have a motion and a second. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
No.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I may make a comment. I just want to commend the sheriff and the sheriff's department for spreading your high-rise vehicles during the recent storm event.
Yeah.
I got a lot of feedback from the citizens in Vanceboro and Cove City in our areas that they were glad to see a vehicle there in case we need it. Glad we didn't have to use it, but I commend you for having the vision and putting it out there and helping our citizens. And I know you did that across the whole county.
Yes, sir.
But I'm just talking about the areas in which we represent. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all.
Have a good evening.
All right. Okay, next is Melanie Ray. Public Matters CARES Act. Have our funds.
All right, now I got.
Good evening, Melanie.
Hey, how are you?
Got yourself unattached?
How about yes? That's what happens with earrings and jewelry. It gets caught in it. Of course, notice it has to be patriotic, of course. Yeah, I'm here tonight to just to present and get added to our budget our CARES Act money for $126,111 to get ready for due to COVID precautions for the elections. So that's what I'm here for.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Melanie, are you having trouble finding workers due to COVID or?
We have trouble finding workers in normal times.
Right.
So this has added to it a little bit, but part of this money, we're recruiting, sending every household a card and getting calls that way. It's been, state board has actively been recruiting. All the parties are actively recruiting. We are getting some new blood. The only problem we're having is we won't be able to have in-person training. So we're looking at a portal with this money if we have to use this money for an online training because they've got to be trained. That's where we're not really sure what's going to happen there with all the COVID because they have to lay out the precincts 6 feet, voting places 6 feet, their workers 6 feet, but we've already drawn schematics and plans of all the polling precincts. We went and visited all the polling precincts and have drawn out the layout of all the precincts to get as many booths as we can in there. So That's the only thing I hate is not having the in-person. We are going to have the chief judges in 5 at a time because they're going to have to know what's going to be expected. But it's the new training. And we get a lot of people wanting to volunteer, but until we start telling them they've got to wear masks all day, be there 13, 14-hour days, they usually bow out.
I see in here permissible uses of these funds. Is the Board of Elections looking at having any additional sites? And I see here lease of new one-stop sites. Is that just, are you looking at bigger sites? Or are you looking at additional sites?
We looked at any site. Actually, I called 18 places just to secure a 5th site. And finally, the 18th one said yes. We'll be at Burn Square, one of the rental places in there, for our 5th one-stop site. And because we've never used Burn Square, we can pay for it with our CARES money, but they're only charging us $500 for the usage. And if we had used the place we've used before, like Rims Fire Department or Old Cherry Point Road, we couldn't have used CARES money. The CARES money is only for new. Yes, anything new. It's like absentee by mail. We've already tripled. We're on track to triple, maybe 4 times what we did in 2016. We did 2,600 in 2016, so it will pay for anything over the 2,600 that we mailed in 2016, the postage and stuff. It's only for new things. So, yeah.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting me ask the question.
Sure.
You know, with mail-in ballots and the concern that folks have over COVID, do you see, or is your office going to have trouble trying to get those mail-in ballots calculated, tabulated in a...
No, the tabulation process is fairly easy. Our board has absentee meetings throughout. We've added 6 more absentee meetings. Basically, what they're going to do is, because they lowered the witness signature to just 1, all the board will do is make sure the voter signature is there and the witness signature is there. And we have a thing called a MAT team, which is a multi-partisan assistance team, has a Democrat, a Republican, and an unaffiliated voter on it. We appointed 3 this year for a 2-year period, and they're going to come into the absentee meetings, and instead of the board opening up each one and inserting them into the DS-200, they're going to do that. So it's going to cut down on time a lot. And marking ballots is our UAQUAVA, our military overseas. They can email their ballots, and our board used to take the time to mark those. Now they've given the authority to the MAT team, the multi-partisan team. So all that will be done ahead of time, marking we will be opening and inserting as we go, instead of before, I was opening after they were all approved and inserting them. So no, I do not feel we're going to have any problem keeping up with the bulk. Where our problem is going to be the very first mailing at the in the second week of September, where we normally have maybe 500 to get out, we're going to have over 2,000 to get out in a 48-hour period. We're going to all be really working to get those ballots out. But that's the only thing that I see.
Thank you.
We're going to have a problem. We hired 2 extra
Any other
people.
discussion? Being no other discussion, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes. Thank you.
Any questions, just call me. Thank you.
Department Matters, Recreation and Parks, Billy Wilkes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good. Good.
All right. Got 2 reasons to come see you tonight. The first of which we introduced at a July 20th meeting was the Creekside Dock improvements that we talked about. 3 things that we're looking to do as part of that improvement plan are inclusion, safety, and we're also looking to redo the boards and the railings on the dock. Those are the 3 major things we're looking to do. I think there's a picture up behind me. The project in of itself required us to have public comment, which happened earlier. It also requires you guys to bless the project. It's a $118,000 grant all in. $29,500 of that is the county's responsibility if we get the grant. And the timeline goes October 17th, I think, or mid-October is when we're going to have to or hear about the grant. August 17th is when the grant is due in. And pretty much all the work is done for that. We're just waiting. We'll need minutes from the meeting if you guys agree to let us go forward with it. Basically, the dock behind me would be completely redone for the boards on the topic. And then the inclusion piece, of course, is the walkway down to the floating dock, which would allow for easier access to our kayak launch. Safety piece to me is getting some of the fishing, activity that's out there in a separate area, which allows them a spot to go, but also creates a pathway through the entire spot. So what we're asking you tonight is to allow us to proceed with this grant. And as I mentioned earlier, the public comments section was good to have as well and needed for the grant.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Okay, discussion? Being no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Martin.
Yes.
And thank you. The two groups that have helped a lot with that are Craven County Planning and GIS, and I wanted to mention both of those groups as to just their help in preparing everything for this grant. So I appreciate them a lot. The second agenda item is swing sets, and we basically have two older swing sets at our parks now. We've replaced a lot of our playground equipment, and I'm thinking right behind me, if you look, this is the Rocky Run swing set. It's the last original piece from Rocky Run Park. We've done a good job as a commission and as a recreation department, I think, of updating that park over the last several years. We've updated the picnic shelter. We've got a brand new basketball court. We've got a new climber. We refurbished the climber, and our playground equipment there is still about 5 to 7 years out from needing to be replaced. However, this swing set was original Rocky Run Park from the early to mid 1980s, I believe. As you can see, it's been around for a little bit and had a lot of folks swinging on it. So we wish to replace that. And then there's also a picture of Creekside Parks, I believe, if he'll switch to that. That was original to Creekside Park as well. And it doesn't give you as good a view as I would like, but basically that's the same type of situation. That one has been an active swing set for about 20 to 21, 22 years, somewhere in there. Was the original swing set for Creekside Park. We had hoped in this current budget to replace the Rocky Run one and then come back next year and replace Creekside's. So it was going to be a part of our process anyway. We saw an opportunity to get two grants in which we can kind of do both at once. We're going to install them. That'll save the county about $5,500 to install both swing sets. The grants were $1,000 from the Cherry Point Spouses Club, which was a new donation amount, and then also $7,600 from the Harold Bate Foundation. As you know, they've done a lot of good projects with us over the years and are just a great partner. So what we're requesting tonight is the match of the $7,600, and that would be to match the Bate Foundation grant. All totaled, we're looking at a $15,600 project for two brand new swing sets. On those swing sets, too, the cool part is it'll have two swings for infants, two which are regular belt swings, and then two high back swing sets, which are for the folks who have mobility issues or the younger kids that maybe can't quite get to the belt swings but are too big for the infant swings. So it provides just about everybody a chance to swing, and that's what we like about these new style swing sets. We would place one at each park to replace the original ones, and that's what we're requesting is that grant match this evening.
Okay. Second grant.
Question, please.
Yes. Well, let's have a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Okay, now ask your question.
On the set for Rock and Run, are they going to tear the whole thing down, put everything new?
Yes, sir. So that whole swing set you saw back there, I don't know if you can go back to it, Steve. So we'll remove, that's kind of, yep, he had what the new one was going to look like. So they'll remove the whole thing.
Okay.
Now, we did have 4 bays up here, but with the amount of volume we have at Rocky Run Park, the 3-bay system will work fine. We don't, most of the time when you go to Rocky Run, you will see maybe 1, 2, 3 swings, folks swinging. So we'll have a total of 6 swings. 2 of them will be infant. 2 of them will be the regular belt swing, which you've seen on most of your playgrounds. And then 2 of them will be the high back chairs. And I think Steve can go to that. There's the high back chair. That's for folks who maybe have a little bit of mobility issue, or if it's somebody that's, say, 2, 3 years old that's too big for the infant swing, they can go in that as well. And it locks in, and it's a really neat thing. We don't have those at either one of those swing sets currently, so it'll be an upgrade.
Do you have a time limit on this project?
As soon, if you guys agree to it tonight, we can pretty much order it once the transfer's been done. It takes about 4 weeks to get in, and then it would be, just based on us being able to install it. Usually we do projects like that once the sort of summertime rush is over and we're not working on cutting grass every single day. We've got a good park staff, and they can do this project without a problem. And again, it'll save the county a good bit of money from us doing it. So.
So, Chair.
Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion, a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Mr. McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark, may I say something?
Yes.
I just want to congratulate Billy. He's working really hard, looking for grant opportunities, and he and Mark are doing a fantastic job finding ways to fund these projects at the lowest possible cost to the county. So, Billy, I know they're always on these things. So.
Thank you, Willie.
No, thank you. And you gentlemen, ladies, have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Gene Hodges, Department Matters, Facilities, approval of change order to include HVAC repairs at courthouse.
Good evening, Board. On June 1st, 2020, the Craven County Board of Commissioners approved a contract with Barnhill Contracting Company for repairs to the courthouse emergency services information technology facility. We call it the courthouse. This initial contract was for $1,280,453 to replace and repair the critical building systems that were damaged during Hurricane Florence. As I explained at that time, the initial contract did not include the pricing for the repairs to the chiller and air handler components of the HVAC system that services the first floor. At that time, I explained that it had been decided to bid out the permanent repair work for these components versus installation of portable temporary systems. The pricing for this permanent repair work has come in at $666,037. A project ordinance amendment and budget amendment in the amount of $700,037 are shown in attachment 8. The amounts that make up this amendment are as follows: the construction costs and CM at risk fees, $666,037, a contingency of 5% of the construction costs, $34,000, and that's a total of $700,037. The request is for the board to approve a project ordinance amendment and associated budget amendment in the amount of $700,037 to fund this project and to authorize the county manager to execute the change order with Barnhill Contracting to include the HVAC repairs in the courthouse project.
Do I have a motion from the board? Second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Discussion. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Commissioner Liner.
Gene, is this going to be paid for with our insurance and with FEMA money?
That's the feelings at this time. I'll defer sometimes to Craig Warren, our finance director. But the plan right now is that once we get all these repairs work, it's going to be a combination of FEMA and insurance. This should pay the overwhelming majority of this.
Thank you, sir. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any no other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Amber Parker, Department Matters, Human Resources, Opioid Program, Community Outreach Budget Amendment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight to request to roll over $14,400 that was budgeted in fiscal year 2019 and 2020 to pay for the opioid program community outreach advertising costs on carts vans. Ads were completed near the end of the fiscal year of 2019 and 2020, but invoices were not submitted for processing in time to meet the 2019-2020 year end cutoff, and they'll need to be paid in fiscal year 2020-2021. So the funds were budgeted last year, and we're just requesting to roll those over.
So moved.
Got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? And, yes, Commissioner Liner.
I'm going to throw this at the manager. With everything else that's going on, and I know we've got a lot on our plate and everything else, how are we coming for a committee for this? Because, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and everything to get what we've got in this opioid program. The money's been spent. We talked about forming a committee so we don't lose sight of what we've done.
Yes, sir. Ms. Parker's prepared to give you an update as well. We weren't sure if you wanted it during or after the budget. Maybe it's up to you. We can go ahead and do it now if you like.
You got it. I'd like to hear it.
Amber?
Sure. Certainly, we brought Jasmine Kennedy over from Environmental Health. She came over towards the end of November, and by the time we got her settled into her office and ready to go, she went through some public information officer training so she could be a backup for hurricane season as well as other types of disasters. Then COVID hit, and so certainly the opioid program really is to go out into the community, to be part of collaboratives, to be seen out in the public, to be passing out information. And some of that has been done. Jasmine's gone out and she has handed out information at some basketball games. She's also worked on a number of social media campaigns, putting out ads for National Safety Month, and ads that really target certain types of audience, things that look at how you can call 911 and report a suspected overdose without getting into trouble for being involved or having drugs on you. She's sharing information like that. And also she's worked on creating 30-second radio ads that are running on 101.9 WIKS as well as V103.3, and she's got messages going out that are targeting audiences over age 14 as well as those that are targeting parents of children who are being affected by opioid addiction. We also have 8 ads that are on CARTS vehicles, and they are advertising things such as the Dix Crisis Center, and also the messages regarding suspected overdose, and talking about how frequently people can become victims of overdose in every 12 minutes. So we've got 8 ads running on the CART ads. We also have the billboard that's up Highway 70. Raise your hand if you've seen that. Okay, so if you're going like you're heading towards the beach, you'll see it's a large prescription bottle with a line through it that's basically the message is trying to say to break the connection between prescription opioids and drug addiction. And so that's a powerful message. So if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage everyone to keep your eyes out when you're...
Amber, that's 70 like you're going from New Bern to Havelock. It's right at the Carolina... 70 like you're going from New Bern to Havelock. It's right at the Carolina Pines entrance on the right. It's a very prevalent billboard that's got a lot of clearance around it. So I thought it looked good. I mean, obviously, you can be the judge.
Jasmine has also worked with some community partners such as the hospital on their electronic billboards. She's created some advertising messages, and the hospital will rotate out those messages every campaign for National Safety Month, where she talks about the do's and don'ts regarding opioids, knowing the risk, managing your pain, overdose 411 to know the risk, and One Simple Step, which is about locking up prescription medications. She also launched a social media campaign in conjunction with National Prevention Week and put out messages such as don't let your prescription become your addiction, talk to your loved ones, sharing is not caring, 5 steps to prevent opioid misuse, and how to read your prescription label. So right now, because she can't really go out and be as involved with the community or be involved in collaboratives, she's really having to focus a lot on advertising, social media, messages. She also developed a webpage for the Craven County's opioid program, a work in progress, where she has information regarding information regarding treatment programs, resources that people might need, just a lot of information where someone can go to get information on going to the Dix Crisis Center as well. She's joined up with some partnerships such as the Coastal Coalition for Substance Abuse Prevention, the Community Collaborative for Craven County Children, the Embrace Recovery Rally Planning Committee. She is also a part of the Stop the Epidemic Project. She is now serving on the board of directors for Realize U252 and is partnered with Substance Abuse Prevention and Education Department at Cherry Point. She's also working on creating some opioid programs, informational brochures that she's going to go out into local community businesses and in agencies to put that information out and to periodically change them. And she's developed a tracking method to see how many of those brochures are being taken. And so far, she has a partnership established with Carolina Technical Plastics, Hatteras Yachts, Carolina Orthopedics, and she's trying to go out to at least 50 businesses to have resources out, and that way, no matter where people are, the information is there for them. She's also working with the Cherry Point newsletter to create the Substance Abuse Prevention and Education newsletter, and just a bunch of other programs, such as working on a training program with the schools where she's targeting student athletes and their parents in case they get injured and get prescribed medications. So she's taking a lot of different training approaches and trying to look at all different angles of the opioid issue in Craven County, working on that now while we're waiting to be able to get back to engage with people again.
Yeah, I think these programs will help the Dix Crisis Center in bringing people down there. No two ways about it.
Mr. Chairman, one of our focuses was on that. Amber and Jasmine and I met a lot when she got here about the importance of the Dix Center and making sure we're getting our money's worth, so to speak. I'm pleased to say that the last couple of reports from Craven County look really good.
Yes.
I think our folks are learning more about it. Obviously, with COVID, they've had their own challenges down there. I am pleased the hospital is recognizing the Dix Center now as a resource for them. They're using the facility, so is our sheriff. We had several, I believe it was, Mr. Chairman, 4 jail diversions in the month of May. I think that's the last
That's
month.
correct. I think it was 5, wasn't it?
5 jail diversions, which means someone who otherwise would be jailed to detox in jail, which is not the best environment to do that, actually is detoxing in a
But it cost the hospital money.
And that was one of our problems, going to Mr. Sampson's point, and it's a little different, but you know, if they're not detoxing in the jail, the less liability to the county, right, to be in a facility that's trained to detox from these things. So we'll continue to push that message. If you see the carts vans, it's got it loud and clear, the phone number and how to do it. So hopefully it'll work.
Okay.
Tom.
Yes.
Chair. I appreciate it, and the way she's going to burn herself out, just one person. What I was getting at, we had talked about last year, a committee.
Right.
Like the Aging Committee, Transportation Committee, having a committee. I do not believe, I may be wrong, but the 5 chairs that we have for the 5 different committees that's set up, I don't think are on top of this or knew all of this that's going on. And for her to be doing this all herself in a vacuum, more or less, she needs help, and she needs which way to go. That's why we thought we were going to have a committee.
You're right, Commissioner. I was going to address that lastly. One of the last things Gwen did before she retired, Gwen sort of took the ball and ran with it, and then Jasmine picked it up when Gwen retired, was this transition of what the committee would look like. Because, I mean, we've changed what we're doing, that some of the actions that we had in our plan are actually in place now. So there may be a different audience you need on the committee. We're simply just at a point where we're paralyzed by not being able to get a group of people together in a room to start this process. But I think it's our intention to bring that group together once the time is there and we're available to do it.
I'd like to make a recommendation that of the 5 known chairs that we knew that had the committees, the different committees, that this information gets sent out to them so they can disperse.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that we don't want to forget our younger kids coming up. We want to stop them from even getting on it. But we know we have some kids that's born with it. And we want to think about trying to reach them before they get too tied up in these drugs. Because you can spend a fortune trying to catch these things before it happens. So I'm just hoping that we will think younger rather than think older.
Absolutely.
Because the young people is the ones that's gonna really cost us a lot of money as we go forward. You got to raise them up to that same standard, then you got to take care of them after they get over that standard. So I think we should go younger, even before some of them even born.
Okay, I believe we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is appointments, be effective immediately, otherwise adult care home pending, adult care home advisory committee, nursing home advisory committee, regional aging advisory board, senior legislative Tar Heel alternate, coastal Carolina Regional Airport Authority, September, Craven County ABC Board, and the Firemen's Relief Fund Board. Current Fire Tax Commissioner Board, the following seeks reappointment: Otto Simmons, TW8, WNB REMS.
Chairman, I ask that Mr. Simmons be reappointed.
Okay. Emergency Medical Service Advisory Council, the following seek reappointment: Nicholas Salter, Cherry Point Fire and Rescue, Mark Dahl, Realms Fire and Rescue, District 4, Doug Ferguson, Citizen Rep, and number Gene Matthews, Cove City Rescue, District 2.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a nomination for Nicholas Salter and Doug Ferguson.
Okay,
Reappointed.
by acclamation.
I'll make a recommendation that Mark Dahl and Gene Matthews be reappointed as well.
Okay, acclamation. Doug Ferguson,
Yes, sir.
okay. Gene Matthews, Cove City Rescue, District 2.
Yes,
She got that? Okay.
got-
Community Child Protection Team, the following seeks reappointment: Debbie Hodges, school designation, I'll recommend that one. Upcoming terms expiring. I want to go back to one, the ABC Board.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that Ms. Carol Creighton be reappointed.
Okay, by acclamation. And the other we took care of, that was tabled. Okay. Upcoming terms expiring in September: Riverbend Planning Board, Kelly Forest, District 4, Volunteer Agricultural District Advisory Board, Larry Paul, District 6, unable to continue to serve, Nursing Home Advisory Committee, Linda Lelly, District 1, Adult Care Home Advisory Committee, Nancy Berziad, District 1.
Question.
Yes.
Nan, the Volunteer Agricultural District Advisory Board, can that be anybody from the district, or that?
I'll have to review the
I think it can be anybody.
statutes, but I'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
Okay.
County Attorney's Report. We've been waiting for this.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I regret that the storm delayed you a couple of days from all this excitement with my report this evening.
Well, that's okay. We could take it.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I have two items for your consideration this evening. Both involve county-owned real estate that the county acquired through the tax foreclosure process. The first item is a final offer to purchase tax parcel number 5004042. There's no street address on this parcel. It's actually landlocked. The offer amount was $1,800. We have gone through the upset bid process, and there have been no other bids. The total taxes and cost originally foreclosed were $1,812.21, and the current tax value is $4,680. I do recommend that the board give final approval to this so we can sign the deed and get it back on the tax rolls.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
The second item is another final offer to purchase on 2203 Chestnut Avenue here in New Bern, parcel ID number 8037001. This is a parcel that we own jointly with the city of New Bern, and as has been the custom, we will follow the city's lead on this insofar as purchase prices and things of that nature. Our initial offer amount was $375. I'm really surprised there were no upset bids on that amount, but it survived the upset bid process. The original taxes and costs foreclosed were $4,179.83, and the current tax value is $750. I do recommend that the board go ahead and approve this so we can get this back on the tax roll such as it is.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. County Manager's report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Very strange to be here on a Thursday night. It may be the first time in a long time we've had a Thursday night meeting. But a couple things. I want to say a big thank you to the county staff that worked Monday night and Tuesday. I tell you all the time, we've got a great team. They didn't let me down this time. Lots of employees worked, lots of employees prepared, lots of employees cleaned up. Call from the battlefield, we did pretty good. A lot of power outage in the county, some tree vegetative debris. County buildings were spared, very minimal damage there. We did open 3 shelters. We had a total of 3 people attend one of the shelters. We had 3 residents, but we were there if folks shall need us. Our DSS staff, along with some health department and sheriff's office individuals, worked those shelters. They did a great job. We had PPE. We had our school staff there provide nutrition. The plan worked. Again, I want to thank Mr. Kite and Ira and Patty over in the EOC. Mr. Hodges, who was here with me, and our new IT director, Steve Bennett, who worked that night. They did a fantastic job as always. So I'm really pleased with that. Let's knock on wood. Let's hope that was our drill for the year. I would remind the board, it is a bit unusual as well. The NCACC conference, annual conference, is ongoing now. There were sessions today. I know a lot of you were busy today. There are sessions tomorrow and on Saturday remotely. There's a speaker, Commissioner Liner, that we heard last year. Her name is Doris Kern. She's a presidential historian, very interesting lady, who will be presenting for the second year in a row on Saturday morning. She gives a great talk about current events and elections and things like that. I found her fascinating last year. I even read her book. So she'll be Saturday morning. There's some great sessions on Commissioner Booker, partnerships. I heard you mention that earlier in the meeting. Tomorrow there's a whole section on that, along with CARES Act and COVID and all types of different sections related to that. So I'd encourage you, if you've got time, to check it out and see what's going on. Lastly, the board adopted the CARES Act program, now version 2. We have communicated with all our municipalities, nonprofit partners, and fire and rescue squads. We are starting to receive the packages in. So far, so good. I've spoke with several of the towns with some of the bigger numbers in there to make sure they understand the rules. I know Mr. Warren and his staff are continuing to work with those folks as well. But right now, it appears that everyone's thankful for the money that you provided them and are very happy to put that to use to combat COVID. So that's my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I also would like to thank the county manager and his staff during the tropical storm we had, and especially the IT people who set that up. That was really unbelievable. The Vice Chair and I sat through that, and we were able to see all quarters of the county, and it was really a nice setup.
Also, and I thought, Mr. Chair, it was interesting to do an EOC remotely. We actually had 4 EOCs all connected by video, and we had a satellite EOC at Amber Parker's home where she was being our PIO from her home. So we were all connected in. I never thought we would do something like that. Not quite sure I ever want to do it again, but we did it. So.
Well, it's sure better than being in the emergency service department at this point.
Yes, sir. I would agree.
Okay. The next is Commissioners' reports. As I'm going to take Chairman's privilege for a minute, and I want to read something. This afternoon, Vice Chairman Jones, Commissioner Leiner, and myself met with the members of the Board of Education to discuss the decision made by the Board of Education to institute remote learning only for the first 9 weeks of the school year. We are all concerned about the loss in-person instructional time our students will receive. We're even more concerned that the institutional time will be extremely detrimental to our special needs students, at-risk students, and those students who lack internet connectivity to their homes. We know that the decision being made by the Board of Education are difficult. However, we also know how important in-person instructional time to our students is important. We will continue to meet with the Board of Education and advocate strongly for the creation of a pathway to allow for in-person instruction as soon as possible. With that, I will go to Commissioner's comments. Commissioner Booker?
Thank you, Chairman Mark. County Manager, when did we come back to work in the county at our positions in place after the original shutdown was in March, I think? When did we?
We never left our position, sir. We stayed open for staff the entire time.
I'm talking about the total.
We were closed, I believe, for about 36 days to the public. We still did limited in-person things for essential items. Of course, the sheriff with pistol permits, registered deeds with marriage licenses, tax bills. We were still seeing customers just one at a time. But we were closed for 36 days. We've been back open since, I want to say, the end of May, roughly.
Okay. The employees of Bosch, the employees of Moen, the employees of thousands of other companies, the military, the police, the firemen, everybody is working. Everybody's working. They're not working quite like they did maybe before, maybe a little more protocols in place as far as distance, but everybody's working. But for some reason, our Board of Education has decided that for the next 9 weeks, or the first 9 weeks of the school year, we're not going to be in school. So we got, how many schools? 24?
I think 25, sir.
24, 25 schools sitting empty for 9 weeks. That puts us someplace around November 1st, if my numbers are about right. I personally am going to be shocked if on November 1st, our students are told, oh, you're back in school for the next 6 weeks. Because we got Thanksgiving break, we got Christmas coming up. I'm just here to say, I hope I'm wrong, but based on what I see, I don't think we'll have kids back in school until 2021. I think it's a crime. I think that it's, Chairman Mark already alluded to the fact that the kids that are going to get hurt the worst are the kids that need to be in school the most. The kids who are living in single-family homes, the kids whose mothers have to go to work every day. So a lot of these kids are going to be home alone, and I'm sure they're going to be dedicated to their computer if they have one. I'm being facetious. I don't understand it. All I can say is that I would suppose a lot of parents are pretty upset. I know some parents didn't want to send their kids to school because of fear, and that's okay. They didn't have to send them. They could have kept them at home if that's what they wanted to do. Elections are coming up in November. I think a lot of parents pay very little attention to things like, who's my Board of Education person? Who do I vote for Board of Education? My guess is that the majority of parents in Craven County either didn't vote for a Board of Education person, or if they did, they didn't do their homework. I'm suggesting this year it's time to do your homework and decide if you want to continue with the same people on the board or if you think it's time for a change. I'm very frustrated. I've communicated directly to the chairman of the board. His comment to me was that 2 teachers in Florida died. Well, my comment back to him was, I heard that 4 people died in a car crash yesterday somewhere, but I don't think I'm going to quit driving as a result. Last year, 7,877 people died in the United States every day. It's not, well, the fact is, none of us are going to get out of this world alive. And the reality of it is, life goes on. But for some reason, our board has, in their wisdom, decided to keep kids at home. And I'm very frustrated by it. And then I'm equally frustrated by our governor, who today announced another 30 days of restrictions. People who own movie theaters, other businesses can't reopen, groups can't gather. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I believe there's a lot of politics involved in what he's doing right now. So not very happy today, not a very happy day for what some of our leaders are doing. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I would like to see a comparison between Craven County's plans for education in this school year and the surrounding counties or other eastern North Carolina counties, what we are doing and what other counties are doing. When I see parents with children, whether I know them or not, I ask, what do you think and what are you doing? And one of the things that tends to get minimized is it is very difficult for many people to support their families, to go to work and educate your children. Taking your children to work and doing your job is difficult, if not impossible, for the vast majority of parents. So there is an educational impact of this and an economic and financial impact of this. What I'm not sure is always transparent to citizens in our communities is that there are some other options that other counties have adopted. So I'd like to echo my support for the Vice Chair and the Chair, Commissioner Liner and Commissioner Bucher's comments that I do not believe that this is the optimum solution that has been adopted by the Board of Education. That's all, sir.
Commissioner Liner.
You sure you want me to go?
Yes.
Let me make it, I won't make it brief. I'm not going to make it brief. Good side. The Regional Library Board, if I get into your toes, go ahead here. Regional Library Board is putting in for a grant of about $80,000 to come up with IT equipment and hotspot equipment that we've already pushed out some areas in Commissioner Jones's area. Commissioner Theron and I have been talking about it and other areas in the library on top of what the schools are already doing with their buses. We haven't got the grants, but they're going after them. It looks pretty favorable on that. Like I said, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to. I want everybody to remember, this board is setting 2 different departments. I don't know if you know it, realize it, I don't know. I don't know if I'm missing something. If I am, please somebody get me after the meeting and square me away. Which we set in here for 4.5 days on the budget and a lot of things left on the table and said we're coming back in November. Well, November is 6 meetings away. 6 meetings away of what we're going to do. Now, I know everybody, because I'm always, Sheriff wasn't the only one I got on to. There's others I've reached out to and questioned what they're doing on that. And I think that's all of our rights to do. If you have any questions, concerns, you need to question it of why. And here's what I'm getting at. That budget belonged to us. We tell Jack what to do and how to handle that budget. Jack, I'm not talking to you. This is just my perspective of being a manager before and seeing it. Jack basically has no authority anymore over the sheriff. He has no authority over the sheriff because he's got 4 people on this board he can call and get anything he wants. And that's wrong for us to suffer. The other departments who Jack puts a finger on will not let them come to us because they obey what Jack says because he's their manager. I understand the sheriff don't work for him. I understand Richardson don't work for him, nor Terry don't work for him. But they all play with him as a team. I think we're setting our other departments up for failure, and we're going to blame them, and it's not their fault. But we need to look at it, and again, Jack is not going to, Sheriff wants, he's going to call one of y'all and explain what's going on. Jack, if it was so important, what I was getting at, what it was so important, why didn't he come at budget time? Why did he not come at budget time? He fought for other things on that budget. He had that money in there prior to the budget. That money's been in there for some time. And it's not a lot of money. It's not the point. It's not an emergency, and it's not critical because it's there now and available. And I'm saying we put our own manager in a trepid situation that he has to work through and work around because the sheriff is not going to listen to him. And I get off of my horse on that one. And again, thank the management team and the workers for what they've done and continue to do. And I won't speak on the school board. Anybody can come up after the school board after the meeting, and I'll go offline and stop being on the school board. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Theron McCabe.
Yes, I have 2 minutes to say. I'd like to congratulate Commissioner McCabe on meeting an icon such I did in Washington, D.C. John Lewis was a civil rights leader, and he did a lot for this country. He fought for voting rights and stuff like that. And I know that I made a front page of the newspaper, which is great. And I did get a lot of calls from other people. I think only 2 people from the commission board, my colleagues, called me up. And they're here today. I'm not calling names. They did call me and say, McCabe, congratulations on 2 of them. But no one else did call me on it. And we all know what John Lewis did for this country. And he was a great leader. And I'm sorry on his passing. And he was an icon for all, Martin King and everyone else that marched through the summer in Alabama and in the 60s. And I know him for a long time. I met the guy, I hugged him, and we talked about what he'd been through in D.C. He got hit by the head by officers, stuff like that. So he's gone on, and hopefully we will find another icon like him in the future come up. And he was a great man, and I'm sorry of his loss. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Sampson.
Yes, I'd like to say we are living in a real critical time now. And death is rising day and night. And I've been out here in this fight a long time. And I know some of the things that were going on when I was a boy, and things are still going on. People are still mean. People are still selfish. A lot of people don't even care about one another until they need them. I'd like to say I just about spent my young life in this city trying to make a difference. And I also like to say my wife, she was also there. We wasn't married then, but she was out working she was working herself. But we finally came together. And I can remember when Esther Sampson was a great civil rights worker over 50 years. In the early 50s, when the picketing was going on, just a few adults participated in the Dufferfield area. Johnny Sampson and our leaders, president of the Concerned Citizen in the later years, we picketed in the snow and in the rain with our small children. We helped to be able to sit down on the Clark drugstore, Cressy store, Charles and McClellan, and even the Holiday Inn. Martin Luther King was president of the SCLC Southern Christian Leadership Convention when Sampson and I was members. I attended the National Convention in 1962 at the Ebenezer Missionary Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, along with Betty Roundtree, Reverend Leon Buckshot Nixon, local president. I was hands-on with Miss Rosa Parker laying on her king-side bed by my friends, Mary Simmons, Miss Viola Jones, and Miss Lena Sidbury. We personally spent entire week with Jesse Jackson, who organized the bread basket during that time. Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, their daughters, Yolanda, public. I pushed around in her stroller at the Friday picnic. Rev. Abernathy, who was vice president of the SCLC, Andrew Young, among other dignitaries in August of 1963. I was 4 months pregnant, but being civil-minded, I went to the march on Washington on the bus, which left the Root Chapel, AME Zion Church, on Roundtree Street. There were thousands of people there. We sang, "We Shall Overcome." I heard Martin Luther King's speech, "I Have a Dream." And Congressman John Lewis' speech. Everyone advocated nonviolence. The dream lives on. I tell you, sometimes I think it's still a dream because it's still living on. We have so much going on in our communities. Even after the storm, I see people walking in the street in the rain don't have anywhere to go. People that's hungry, children run the street. You can't even get a recreation place for the kids to play at. And people don't seem to care. I know the Lord been good to me, and I know it's been better to a lot of them than it has me. But I'm still trying my best to do what's right for everybody. It's not easy when you work against power structure because they'll come out at you. And if you don't have the Lord, they will destroy you. There's no doubts about it. I can think about this virus going around and kids dying in the schools. That will break my heart to see kids in school together. And I just heard over the news before I came here that one of the governors that the president supposed to meet with, he had the virus. And I can just think about my kids, my grandkids. And I can think about we need our kids to go to school. But I can think about the kids they're not able to have a computer that they can cut in on the lessons that is being offered. And it's not an easy decision to make when you're trying to stop theft from riding. We're short in medicine right now to get treatment. And the last person, we might well have faced the last person that's going to get help is the poor people and the black folks. I've seen this happen over and over again. You might be able to call a spade a spade. And I know what kind of job our governor has. You have to make these decisions. People to stay in the house, people wear the masks. You can't hardly make a child do that now. You know you can't make a grown person do anything. And so we are caught in the middle. We got to make decisions, the best decision that we feel like is right. And we have to pray and pray and pray over these decisions. And we have to do what we think is best. Sometimes we don't hit the star in the center all the time, but we still got to make some kind of decision. Not just go along with anything, but you got to try and think about other people too this time. I read over and over again how many blacks is dying in the schools, how many blacks dying in the homes. I talked about the homes wasn't up to par. I've been talking ever since I've been on the board about these homes, how the people being treated in these homes. But the state wouldn't do anything. It wasn't a whole lot we could do but contact the state. The state a lot of times wouldn't even investigate. So if we don't stay with the law, we're lost. Ain't no doubts about it, because we can't change the thing ourselves. I don't care how strong we are or how much money we have or how long we stay up nights. But we have to do the best we can and pray and continue to love one another. Because he said, if we do these things, then at his own time, he's not going to do it at anyone else's time, but at his own time, he will make that change. That's all I have.
Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may just make a few comments about today. For those that may be listening to this meeting or may tune in at a later time to hear the comments of this Board of Commissioners, I think we need to give just a little bit of background of why today the chairman, myself, and Commissioner Liner met with several members of the Board of Education. And the chairman was the one who identified today who would go. And from their board, it was also their leadership that attended. And when we went today, we didn't go there to tell the Board of Education how they should conduct themselves or how they should run their board. But what we did is go there on behalf of the many citizens that have contacted us. And what I shared with these fellow Board of Education members is that, like, in their role, they receive calls about school issues. But you and I, as commissioners, we receive comments and calls about everything. Everything. We appropriate the funding for these schools, but folks look to us, the citizens of this county look to us to also be a voice for them, to stand up for them. And I think that's what's being done tonight. All of you know that myself, and I think Commissioner McCabe, he also has said a lot, and other commissioners have, Commissioner Mitchell, about internet service in this county. Today, and correct me, County Manager, if I'm wrong, but I think we were told by the superintendent that 10% of the students in the Craven County school system, 10%, it's 1,300 plus or minus students, have no access to internet. Let me say that again. 1,300 of our students have no access to internet. A lot of these students have no cell phone service where they live. So if the school system was going to go give them a hotspot, they don't even have access to receive their assignments on it. And this is what I want, have been calling me, and this is what I want to stress, and I think Commissioner Sampson said it eloquently. We've got a lot of students that are going to be left behind.
Yep.
For the next 9 weeks, we've got 10% at least of our students that are going to have no instruction whatsoever. And I want to say that again. We're going to have 10% of our students that are going to have no instruction whatsoever. What we tried to echo today is we want everyone to be safe. We want our teachers to be safe, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our custodians. We've got respect for these employees. We want them to be safe. We also want our students to be safe. But we've got to make a decision. Are we going to provide them an education? Or what are we going to do? We've lost how many months we lost 30 days during Florence?
Oh, it's almost 3 months.
Depending on the school, you could have lost anywhere from 30 to
3 months.
Yep.
Okay. Then this past school year, we lost from March to the end of school.
Yep.
Where I can tell you a lot of the students in my county finally gave up because they couldn't get on the internet. And here we are, August 17th. We're going to make these students do the same thing. And what are they going to do? A lot of them are not going to be able to get on the internet. I don't know how many of you saw the article in yesterday's Sun Journal. There was a column that was wrote by Mr. Tom Campbell, the former Assistant North Carolina State Treasurer, who also has North Carolina Spin. He interviewed Judge Howard Manning, the former Superior Court judge, who's called across the state of North Carolina as the education judge. He made these comments, and I quote, reading the Sun Journal, and this is Judge Howard Manning. He said, let's start with the little children. They are the ones we're losing because we aren't teaching them to read and do basic math. If they don't get it by 3rd grade, they won't ever catch up. Our primary effort needs to be pre-K to grade 3. And he went on and made other comments. What I'm trying to advocate for as county commissioner is, Commissioner Sampson, just as you said, it's the areas in my district and across this county, Commissioner McCabe's district, and each of your commissioners' districts, of those students that don't have access to internet, those students that don't have the the support they need to be able to do their work. This Board of Education today told us several things. They told us that the governor, when he announced about the schools reopening and gave them the option for the different plans, that they had not sent to them the appropriate PPE at the time. It was only until how long, County Manager, since they've received the PPE?
They received some of it the day after the decision and still receiving some today.
So they didn't have the resources in hand from the state of North Carolina to properly open. This was one of their reasonings that they gave us. That's not at the fault of the Craven County Board of Education. I'm not pointing my fingers at them. I'm pointing my fingers at the state of North Carolina. And I hope the citizens will hear this and take actual facts. That the school system did not have the proper PPE. They felt like it was adequate to open up. To sum this up, we can't wait and continue to sit idle by waiting for this virus to leave before we identify that there's a problem and these young people have got to have an education. We're not doing our job as public elected officials if we do not stand up for those young people that have no access to an education. And that's what they will have for the next 9 weeks, is no access to education. I've got a lot of respect for our representative, Dr. Greg Murphy. A lot of us on this board look to him not only for his wisdom he has in the medical profession, but also being an advocate as he is to reopen our schools. And he has told us that this virus will get no better between now and Christmas, unless the Lord has mercy upon us, and it does. So what I'm concluding by saying is that in 9 weeks, the Board of Education is not going to open up, as you said, Commissioner Booker. They're not going to open up. The virus, if anything, is going to get worse. And what we've done is we've allowed a generation of young people to miss almost, and I think Commissioner Liner said it today, a year of academic learning in Craven County. I pray that nobody takes what I've said. I'm not pointing fingers at nobody. I'm just voicing an opinion that has been shared with me countless times from citizens in Western Craven County is, Jason, we can't get on the internet. Our child can't receive the instruction. And a lot of these parents don't have the resources, financial resources, to hire somebody to send their child somewhere else. That's who I'm standing up for today. My wife is in public education. She's concerned. She's concerned about going into the class. I understand that. And I want our teachers to be safe. But I urge this Board of Education, please, 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 go back to the drawing table. Have additional conversation about what you can do, what we can do together in trying to make sure all of our students have an education. All of them.
Amen.
Commissioner Sampson, that means the black community.
That's right.
Those in the black community that don't have vehicles, that don't have internet. That's for the Mexicans on my end of the county, and there's a large number of them that don't have internet, don't have vehicles. And I'm going to tell you what, it's the white people too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, before he goes, are either one of you going to talk about the meeting that you had with
the CenturyLink and
Right.
Suddenlink?
Jason, are you going to speak on that?
Yeah.
Let the rest of the commissioners know.
Yeah, Commissioner, Vice Chairman Jones, myself, and the county manager spent some time on the phone with a big vice president, senior vice president with CenturyLink. And basically what he told us was that unless the federal government and the state government came up with funds, they were going to do nothing in the way of providing internet service to the areas that we don't have internet service. That was basically what he said.
Mr. Chairman, may I add a couple things?
Yes.
Excuse me. And I think it correlates well with Vice Chairman Jones' comment about the 1,300 children we learned about today, because in that meeting, he said there were 969 homes in Craven County that had no access to any internet.
That's right.
Landline, fiber, any of that thing. Wasn't surprising to me, but I think finally hearing that number opened my eyes to what the problem is. It's from the gentleman from CenturyLink and the gentleman I've spoke with at Sunlink or Spectrum or whoever we talked to, it's an infrastructure problem. And inherently, the way this thing works, there has been some infrastructure money that's came down from the state to different organizations that would provide this. But it's prioritized based on that number of homes unserved. He basically told us in that meeting, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, so y'all correct me if I'm wrong, Craven County has not risen on that list to a point where they've even looked at trying to advocate for some of that money for our county. They mentioned several other counties in Eastern North Carolina that had a much larger number of unserved homes that made it more lucrative for them to go in and receive this money and use it. The bottom line from what I took from the meeting was it's a business decision for them. And he made a statement, I think, and I'm going to try to paraphrase, that if we made every bad decision that everyone wanted us to do, we'd be bankrupt. I might be going too far there, but I think that's what he said.
That was what he said.
So I think it was a productive meeting, obviously, because we learned a lot. There are some options that he shared with us that we can further explore, but until the infrastructure situation's fixed, and it's a big fix, there's not a lot of options. Mr. Jones, if you want to, I don't know if I've left anything.
I think you and the chairman said it eloquently. The only thing I will add is that bottom line is if we want to see internet service in this county, we're going to have to make the investment ourselves. And I think that I've talked to staff, the chairman's talked to staff, there are some options. And I think, Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate to have a work session, county manager, at some point to start looking at that. You may not like them, you may not think they're feasible, but there are no immediate solutions to this. Commissioner McCabe, you and I, and Commissioner Mark especially, with our districts, with so many without access to internet, they're not planning to do anything. And so it's going to have to be an investment made by Craven County. I think we can make that investment and get some money back with some of the ideas I've heard from staff. I won't go into too much detail right now, but I would like to request when we can to get together and start having some discussions.
I would agree with you, and even at that, it's going to take us 3 years.
Correct.
Before we can cover all those areas.
It's too long.
And it's going to cost a lot of money. But it's going to be a worthwhile investment if we can do it, because it's going to help the children in this county.
Right, and I think to caveat what Vice Chairman Jones just said is there's a secondary problem to internet access, and it's connectivity of our water system. And many of you may remember it was about a year ago, I'm going to knock on wood again, that we lost connectivity over a weekend. And when everybody got home from church one Sunday, they turned on the faucet, it was dry. Because we can't communicate with our wells and our tanks after Hurricane Florence when we lost our communication link. One of the options that would help as a subsequent benefit would be connecting those tanks with fiber and those wells with fiber as a county would allow us to use technology at some of our sites, particularly the elevated towers, that we could then partner with the third party, because we're still prohibited from providing that service directly.
Right.
So there's some options, but the price tag from the engineers is high. Because you're going long distances, underground, tunneling. But I agree with Commissioner Jones. We've got to talk to you sooner rather than later about the water problem.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I might, 3 years is too long. Okay, but if we don't start looking at this now, it will be 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. The first step on a journey is the hardest. If we need to start looking at this now and we need a work session, then I'd like to make a motion that we put it on the table immediately.
I'll second that motion. If you make one.
I'll second.
I mean, we can get direction from this conversation. We don't need a motion to bring it back. I mean, Gene's one meeting away from having the proposal to bring to you.
Yeah, and the only reason I mentioned the 3 years, that's going to take
Right.
longer time. Not that we're not going to start doing something now, and we've all decided on that. So I don't really think we need a motion on it because we are deciding to go ahead and look into this.
Well, I see this as a capital investment in our community, our citizens, our children, our future workforce, our economic prosperity. Frankly, not a whole lot different than roads, electrical power, water, and sewer. And I think we've exhausted every possibility of outside help. This sounds like the good Lord's going to have to help those who help themselves, so we need to get started on a way to do it.
Yeah. That was the purpose of this meeting with CenturyLink and Suddenlink. And I think we've gotten ourselves to that point where we know we have to do it ourselves.
Yep.
And let's make tracks.
I want to,
I don't think.
excuse me?
He asked if we need a motion. I said I didn't think we
I
did.
asked if we draw a motion, you said we don't need a motion, is there?
Oh,
Yeah.
you said we still need.
Draw, yeah.
Well, I'll withdraw it, but my point made is let's,
Yeah, you
sooner rather
made a
than
good
later.
point, and that's the direction we're headed in. I can't say anything further that hasn't been said, but I do want to point out that Craven Community College is got 18% of their classes face-to-face. And there's no reason why we can't have some of our classes in the public schools face-to-face. They've had no problem. They've taken the necessary precautions, and if we take the necessary precautions, I believe the school board should be able to do the same thing. But that's their decision. We're only commenting on what we have been told by our constituents, and I really, one case, I had a call 2 days ago, and it was a special needs child's mother. And believe me, it's special needs, and it's important. When I said at risk, I was talking about the black people, because they are being held back. And you hold these children back for 9 more weeks. I agree with you. It's not going to be 9 weeks. It's going to be the January 1st. And I don't think we can afford to let our children go without learning for that long a time. As far as the county manager and myself and the sheriff has been told by me that before he calls me, he's to call the county manager. And the county manager and I will discuss it. And from that point on, it will be his and my decision as to what goes to the sheriff. At this point, I'd like to call an adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.